I'll make the first assumption that if you're going to start a business in this space, you probably come from this space. You know the problem deeply. It hurts. You're so, let's say, lack of sleep and motivated to solving that problem that you want to start a business to go solve that problem. And you're have deep domain expertise in solving that problem. If that is true, and I'm assuming it's true, my only advice is learn sales immediately. You're already going to be a type of founder that's going to build an incredible product, whatever the product or services is. Like you're going to be able to solve the problem without doubt because you care and you know the space and you know how to solve the problem. So you're going to build something that solves the problem. I'm not worried about you not solving the problem. I'm going to be really worried about you trying to learn sales. Most individuals, I'm generalizing here, coming from this space is terrible at sales. Absolutely terrible at sales. And guess what? You're not high growth if you can't prove that you can generate $1. Your go-to-market ability and your intuition around marketing and sales have to increase substantially fast for you to essentially execute at a venture scale.
Today on Buildings 2.0, we're joined by Robert Yuen, CEO and co-founder of Monograph, the company building the operating system for architecture. Robert shares how Monograph started with a simple goal, helping architects track time, and grew the platform that helps firms run smarter, more profitable businesses. We talk about how tracking time unlocks better decisions, not just billing, why behavior change is the hardest part of innovation, and how AI is quietly transforming the back office of design firms. If you're building, designing, or leading in architecture practices, this episode will change how you think about time, profit, and the future of firm operations. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of Buildings 2.0. I have a really special guest, Robert Yuen, CEO and co-founder of Monograph. Robert,
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. All right, so we have time. I dug in deep. Your Notion page talks about Monograph as the operating system for architecture.
Yeah.
What does the system of record look like for design buildings? What should it look like? And I appreciate that perhaps you're kind of outlining the promised land versus, what you're working on today, but what does this operating system look like too?
So the way I think about an operating system is there's a bunch of different stakeholders that are working together to get something done. So there's many forms of different types of operating systems. I think specifically for Monograph, we're trying to build an operating system for how to get buildings done. And I'm sure you know this, like it takes a lot of different people. It takes architects, it takes engineers, it takes realtors, it takes developers, it takes owners, it takes contractors, it takes subcontractors, trades, vendors, product. You got to get things permitted. You got to pass ordinances. It's a really long and complicated process. And there's a lot of different stakeholders involved in making that happen. So it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly audacious to say, I want to build a system where everyone in this ecosystem works together on one system. It's going to take me many, many years, if not decades, to pull it off.
Where do you start?
You start at the top and you start at the beginning. Very simple, right? Like think about where does a project start? Well, it starts between an owner or developer and the relationship with an architect and the beginning of an idea, the design of an idea, the inspiration of what things might look like. You start there and you solve the immediate problems that are there that are core to being part of our ethos of being an operating system. So we're not Autodesk. We don't solve like a design problem, but we solve a workflow and an efficiency and profitability problem. We're mostly back of house. So right at the very beginning is an architect. Our main job in the very beginning is how do we make sure that an architect is profitable? How do we make sure that they know they're profitable or not? How do we make sure that they can track it? How do we make sure that they can run a really good business so they're not worried about the business and they can stay creative? That's where we start. Similar to like most architectural projects, building projects, it's fairly linear. One step, one stage at a time, one phase at a time, one stakeholder at a time. That's how we build product here. So we built the product for architects for the first 3 to 4 years. In the last 2 years, we've been really focused on expanding that product to engineers. So these are structural engineers, mechanical engineers, seismic, solar, geothermal, HVAC, everyone who's involved in partnering with an architect and ensuring that the documentation, the drawings, and the instructions are laid out appropriately before pricing and bidding, before permitting. And you can imagine if we nail that right, the next thing we solve is permitting, processing, bidding, everything that's in between, historically called pre-construction. Then we'll work on that for a period of a couple of years until we get it right. Then you can imagine the next step is to solve a general contracting and subcontracting problem. One step at a time.
Yeah. So as a fellow founder, I have a deep appreciation for the challenge that you face. Because on the one hand, as you mentioned, you're working on software that's effectively back end work that architects aren't rushing to just rip out their existing solution today. So, how do you address the cold start problem with like, okay, you need to build enough set of capabilities and features that it's attractive enough to for enough firm to consider ripping out whatever existing process they have to try you
Right.
out. But as you said, on the other hand, you need to do one step at a time, right? So you can't just try to boil the ocean and try to do the entire back end. I'm curious, what did that first step look like? Like, I'm curious what that first capability that you were able to deliver that was better than anyone else in the world, where a firm gave you a shot to be like, okay, we're gonna try Monograph.
We're the best at tracking time. So the first thing we built was time tracking. And there was a lot of reasons why we started with time tracking. One, we have to acknowledge that architecture, so we already identified we want to start with architecture at the beginning of the process. We already know that one of the biggest challenges that we want to solve is help them run a better business so they can come out and have better profit and efficiencies. Can't build all that on day one. What can we attribute money to? Time. Architecture is a service-based industry. If they can have a better line of sight to their time, they will effectively have a better line of sight to revenue. So the first thing we build is timesheets. And then we're absolutely the best at doing timesheets because everything starts with time. Don't know where your time is going, then, well, forget solving the invoicing problem, forget solving like the project management problem. We have to focus on how do we manage your own time. Start with time.
Yeah. From that first step to the next, what was that natural next step for you?
Project. You got peg time to something.
Mm,
Time for this time is not,
yeah.
really relevant. You have to peg time to a project.
Hmm.
Almost immediately after doing incredible timesheets is by default, we have to solve a project problem. Like how do we peg it to a project? And how
Mm,
do we add time to the phases of a project? SD, DD, CD, CA. These are
right.
like more or less standard phases on the architecture engineering side of the equation. How do we make sure that that is seamless and that we can track your time relative to total budget of a project and relative to phase budget? Go back SD, DD, CA
Right.
phases. Very natural in terms of transition.
Yeah. Can we for a moment just spend on this on the topic of time and specifically architects' time? What have you learned over the years? I ask because um, billable hours has been the staple of the industry, and yet, especially amidst AI showing us that what used to take X amount of hours, um, could be near instant soon, depending on kind of work. Presenting this like weird discrepancy where on the one hand you've got technology and tooling that could do things much faster. On the other hand, when your entire business model is based off how many hours you produce, there's kind of like this awkward incentive here. What have you learned? Literally, you've become the best in terms of time tracking. The time of an architect is a I think is I'm putting it into question. Like, is the best unit of measure how many hours you spend on something.
Say, are you athletic? Do you run marathons? Do you work out? Like, what's your favorite sport?
Well, basketball, and I the last time I played was years ago. So unfortunately, that speaks to how athletic I've been in the last few years.
So I love basketball too. I used to play a lot. I grew up in Chicago, so I'm a huge Jordan fan. I think of tracking time like shooting free throws. You have to do it. You practice them, you do them regularly. But the goal is not to be the best free throw thrower. The goal is to be the best basketball player and to win games. But you don't know if you don't practice and you don't know where you stand if you don't have a benchmark for yourself. So I think it's really important to essentially decouple tracking time with invoicing for your time. Like that's so natural for everyone to think that way. We're like, oh, I'm
Right.
going to like track 40 hours. I'm going to bill for 40 hours. In reality, that's not how it works,
Mm, hmm.
right? In reality, you're tracking time so you can measure your own efficiency so you can be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. It's for you to do better. Now, how you charge, that's going to vary from business model to business model, from firm to firm. Theoretically, even if the time shrinks as we start to like execute projects faster with technology, with BIM, with the tools that you're building and a whole bunch of other founders are building, the time it takes to design things are going to shrink. That should not equate to the amount of money you build, right? Like you should be invoicing and billing based on value. The time you're tracking is really an efficiency metric for you to do better. Another version that's a little bit more easy to comprehend is like if you're a marathon runner. So you practice, you run all the time and you track how long it takes you to run. The only goal is to finish the race. You're tracking time to better yourself because you want to run a faster time. But the goal isn't to just run a faster time. The goal is to finish the race. When you're thinking about billing and invoicing for work, the goal is to invoice for value, bill for value, ensure that the business is profitable and you cover your overhead. Be a good and responsible business owner. You tracking time is just setting a benchmark for yourself and for your team and for your business so you know where do you stand, how long does it take you to do the work, and are you doing better?
Right. Break down an 8-hour workday for me. I might be unfair where the average architect's working maybe 12, 13 hours. I don't know. But what you've learned based off tracking time, what are we
Mm.
spending times on?
So what I have learned is the more you use Monograph, the more efficient you become. You make better decisions. So when I was an architect, I don't know where my time is being attributed to. I will get asked to do 2, 3 more versions of a design. I will spend hours doing them. They'll turn out great. And then I'll realize I should have never done it because the project was already low on budget. What we're noticing now, because everything is seamless, everyone gets essentially a gauge of how well they're doing on a project. Everyone makes better decisions. So the time is being appropriately spent. I don't think anything changes in terms of where your time actually gets spent on. You're still designing, you're still coordinating, you're still doing the work. The biggest change is you're making smarter decisions and you now have essentially guardrails of how much time I can spend and should spend on an exercise. That has never been true. So imagine this, like I live in California, I live in San Francisco. I love to ski, can't play basketball, but I can go down a mountain. Tahoe is a 4-hour drive. Imagine that that's the project. I'm going to drive from San Francisco to Tahoe and the whole time I don't have a gas meter. That's how the practice has been running. It's not that you can't get to Tahoe, you will. You're just driving without a gas meter. So you don't know if you should speed up, you should slow down. You don't even know if you need to like pull over and get more gas. You're just going to keep driving until you don't have any gas left.
Right.
Um, there's a huge problem with driving that way. It causes a lot of anxiety. It causes a ton of anxiety and it makes you cannot make smart decisions if you don't know what's in front of you.
Right. So this is your day to day, right? So this is kind of come natural to you. But for listeners that are wondering, what is the average firm in AE doing? I mean, is it Excel? Is it, just finger in the wind? Like, I think we spent this. Like, what's their alternative right now?
So before Monograph, the most common trend we see is people are on spreadsheets, sketchpads, and they're essentially like using spreadsheets as a tool to get a little bit of insight to where they're going. The problem with spreadsheets is like it doesn't talk to each other very well. It's not really a design solution. There's not a lot of software to design for back of house for this industry. I'm really proud of the work we've been doing, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah. For one of the things interesting is that I think you're one of the few founders that I could talk to about, the pressures of high growth, the pressures of venture. From the time you started to where you are today, what would you advise new founders, in the kind of serving the A&E space? What should they know when they start off?
Oh my God, straight into a spicy topic.
To go as spicy as you want. I mean, this is seriously because I'll share my 2 cents, and I'm curious to hear if your background. So for one, I think venture and prop
Yeah.
tech has had a kind of a iffy past, and prop tech, contech, whatever you might want to call it. And I'm a firm believer to think that most services in real estate could generate a dollar. So, founders that approach me, I typically say something like, go prove something out with duct tape or pencil first before and just by any means necessary. Most firms don't really care how you solve their problems so long as you can do it better. And then, of course, once you find something, then, and someone's paid you $1 or 2 or 3 or 10, and you find some sort of a kind of repeatable motion, then go raise some money. That's my general 2 cents. These days, it seems like, folks have an idea and they'll just by default go raise money. Of course, putting pressure before there even is an idea that's executed. What's been your experience with VC?
So there's a couple layered questions there. Let me see if I can first answer the first one. Your question is what should new founders be aware of as they start specifically in the AEC prop tech space,
Yeah.
going in specifically as trying to be a venture-backed high growth company. So I'm going to make some assumptions. I'll make the first assumption that if you're going to start a business in this space, you probably come from this space. You know the problem deeply. It hurts. You're so, let's say, lack of sleep and motivated to solving that problem that you want to start a business to go solve that problem. And you're have deep domain expertise in solving that problem. If that is true, I'm assuming it's true, my only advice is learn sales immediately. You're already going to be a type of founder that's going to build an incredible product, whatever the product or services is. Like you're going to be able to solve the problem without doubt because you care and you know the space and you know how to solve the problem. So you're going to build something that solves the problem. I'm not worried about you not solving the problem. I'm going to be really worried about you trying to learn sales. Most individuals, I'm generalizing here, coming from this space is terrible at sales, absolutely terrible at sales. And guess what? You're not high growth if you can't prove that you can generate a dollar. Your go-to-market ability and your intuition around marketing and sales have to increase substantially fast for you to essentially execute at a venture scale. Your ability to build a great product, I'm just going to assume that's a default yes, because you come from the space.
Right. Right. In your years of experience selling into firms, what have you learned about the selling process, the procurement process in general? I'll explain why I'm interested. Most AEC is very project based, right? We have a project, there's a budget, there's usually a hard cost, soft costs. Within soft costs, you have kind of a bundle of line items for software and perhaps some kind of professional services. One of the challenges that I find common, this is including us as well as other startups, is there's kind of an on-demand nature in AEC where there's a project, there's a need, there's a project, there's a need. But when there's no projects, it's kind of hard to justify some sort of kind of like nature.
Yeah.
Somehow you've cracked that. And so how have you thought about the mechanics of selling into AE firms in terms of line items, CapEx versus OpEx? Like how do you navigate that? Because ultimately if these startup tech companies and like AEC can't solve that, then there is no scale, right? You're kind of stuck at the individual project basis.
A really hard problem. At least for Monograph, we don't solve a project problem. We solve a business problem. You don't buy Monograph for one project. You buy Monograph to run your business. It's no different than you buying MS Office, Google Suite, Slack, MS Teams, Zoom. You're solving fundamental business problems. You
Right.
buy it for the team. You don't buy it for the project.
Hmm.
I think that distinction is really, really important and allows us to get away from your project cycles go up and high. Like it's kind of irrelevant. Like you still need us to like run a business. Obviously, if you're growing really fast, need is more. And if you're growing a little slower, the need is still there. If you're pegged to a project, that's where I don't have a lot of experience in. I think you'll be a lot better at answering that question than I would because we don't solve that problem.
Working with these firms, have you found that there's like some sort of sacred cow that they just don't want to get rid of, that as you present a better solution for them, people are just kind of stuck in their ways?
Always change of behaviors are difficult. So whenever you're asking someone to change the behavior, so I think like a really good product and a really good product strategy acknowledges where there is low hanging easy adoption curves, and also identify areas of the product that's like very difficult to adopt. Um, and theoretically, you should probably do the easy stuff first so you can get momentum and assume that the hard parts of the product to adopt are like things that you can essentially slow roll in later during the life cycle of that customer's journey. So for Monograph specifically, architects have always tracked time. It's never changed. You've always logged time. It's great. Change nothing. Used to enter 8 hours a day, every single day, 40 hours a week on a spreadsheet. Now just do it here. Change nothing. And then once you do that, our system is all interconnected. The meters will start to move, your charts will start to move, everything will move, but you didn't have to change a single behavior. That's, I think, one attribute to a lot of our early success is try really hard to not change behavior. Behavior changes are incredibly difficult. And then you layer on behavior changes later. So I'll give you an example. I have a really strong opinion that architects and engineers should be billing monthly. Historically, they bill based on phase completion, right? 25% complete, 50% complete, 100% complete. The problem here is you're essentially not collecting revenue until an arbitrary completion date hits. That could be months out. Well, here, that's the beginning of the problem. You're running
Right.
a business. Payroll hits every month, every 2 weeks. Your rent is due every month. Your electric bill every month. Your insurance every 3 months. Everything else in life is every month, but you're not collecting money every month. Well, that's the beginning of your cash flow problem. Your cycles are essentially off, right? Like you got money that drops in every 3 to 6 months, but every month you have to pay out. We gotta solve that problem. And the easiest to solve that way to solve that problem is change the way you invoice from phase based to monthly. That is a behavioral change. That will take years for us to say that now the industry is starting to really, really adopt a new way of invoicing. It will not happen instantaneously, but it is directionally the right move because it makes no sense to continue to invoice based on miles and completes. You should be invoicing based on your financial cycle of your business. And most businesses operate at the monthly level, especially if you're small, right? The smaller you are, the faster you actually need that cash to come in.
What so how do firms think about that? Like when you're drafting up proposals for a project and maybe you're getting pressure from a client to bill, like how do you even go about this? I mean, how do you have that conversation with the clients?
Well, you remind them it's still your business. It's like I'm not in a position to tell you what to do. I can tell you like this is a much better philosophy. And we can do a whole bunch of content product marketing. So essentially educate that this is a better way and you should try it. And then we can essentially build in incentives in the product. So we can control our proposal writing features to essentially incentivize, including language that allows you to do that in the contract, in the proposal. So you start off on the right foot. We can build in mechanisms in how we essentially advocate for invoicing. Invoicing reminders happen monthly, regardless if your milestone or not, just so that's always top of mind. It's like, hey, end of the month is here. You should consider doing something. You should consider checking in to see where your cash balance is, where your revenue is, and should you be billing in? Theoretically, you should. Everything's automatic if you do. Our payments is a lot more seamless. So we solve a payments problem. We help move money for you. It's a lot more faster and everyone wins. And you get paid faster too if you bill invoice monthly. You get paid faster because the invoice is smaller. So think about it. If you have a $30,000 invoice that's going to happen in 3 months, and you say instead of collecting 30,000 3 months later, I'm going to collect 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. So your dollar amount is now smaller. Because it's smaller, you generally get paid faster. So that's a win-win for everyone. It's a win for the owner. It's a smaller amount, easier for them to essentially pay out. It's a win for our customers because they get paid consistently. We're about to start a lending product. So we're there to essentially help small businesses also when you need that cash. I can underwrite a lot better if the frequency that you get paid is also higher. Then you have a much better pattern in terms of like how often do you get paid? How well do you get paid? And we can say, based on this history, we can offer you a small loan to help bridge any type of like accelerated growth or any period of downtime, like you're trustworthy. You're not trustworthy, we don't have enough data point.
How do you think about the kinds of firms that would most benefit? So, of course, the physics of a small versus medium versus large firm is in terms of headcount as well as the
Yeah.
dynamics are different. But who most benefits from Monograph today?
Small. 95% of the industry is small. And I want to create an impact on the world. I want to leave a legacy behind. And I want to solve a really big problem for the most amount of people. So that's small and medium sized firms.
What's that look like? So, what's today the small architectural firm look like in terms of headcount? Maybe some of the common challenges. Who's typically running invoicing? Is it the principal themselves? Is it maybe an assistant at that stage? What's that look like?
Yeah, it can be all of the above. We have customers that are as small as solo practitioners and as large as a firm size of 100. So you can imagine at the one, you are everything. You can also imagine at 100 employees, you have a team. You have a finance team, you have an ops team, and you're solving like problems for that team. Our average customer is right around between 10 to 25 employees. So they either do it themselves or they just have their very first ops hire to help them with invoicing and billing.
It would not be a technology podcast if I didn't ask you. AI. So
Of course.
AI, both internally as a founder, running a great high growth team, but also AI in your product. Navigate that whole world for me. Unpack what that means for you.
So I believe AI, similar to mobile, when first mobile came out, and the entire rave was mobile first. And now it's a default. No one talks about mobile. It should be like the industry standard across all tech. I think AI is the same. We're in the very beginning stages of AI and how it can be incorporated. A lot of people are articulating AI first as part of their ethos. I think it's been part of our DNA from day one. So we're not going to come out and say that we're AI first, but AI is part of almost every feature we build nowadays. And we have some incredible new workflows that are absolutely powered by AI right now. A few that I'm really excited about. Historically, in the project management tool, when you start something, you have to create a new project, type in the title, type in the phases, type in the timelines, type in who you want to staff, the person you want to staff, what the rates, for how long. There's a lot of actually data entry to set up a project. Today, it's already been live for less than almost a year actually now. Just upload your contract. As soon as you do that, 99% of all those fields are done.
Wow.
We'll even go as far as like, we'll check your timesheet data, we'll check your resourcing and staffing modules, and essentially give recommendations who would be the best person to start working on this new project. Because we have all that data. Like we know who's going to be available, who's the right fit, who has the right seniority based on title, and who's done projects that are similar. So we can say, awesome, these are the people that are going to be great for this project, and here's where they'll slot in. We do 99% of all the planning work. You just have to review it and hit OK. That would not be feasible in the past, right? In a historical pre-AI scenario where things are mostly on databases, Rails infrastructure, you're still mostly data entering into your SQL database. Now with AI, we can essentially be a lot smarter. Give me your contract, just hit the upload. We'll do everything else.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
We have a mobile app. We have a call recording, similar to a lot of other call recording tools that are out there, but specifically designed for architects and engineers. You can
Mm.
take it with you, hit the record button. It will summarize all the meeting notes, drop in the summary into the project, and then share that out with your external consultants and vendors as well. There's a lot of ways we can start to incorporate AI to essentially optimize the workflow for how jobs get done.
I can't help but to think like, yeah, it's what's happening is that we are going from building tooling that ultimately is dependent on someone on the other side learning that tooling and use it and hopefully advocating and getting other folks on the boat. Um, on the user client side. But now with AI, it seems like everything is now, or the pendulum is rather from selling tooling to essentially selling just done for you services. Um, is that kind of where this is heading to? I mean, effectively, sure. I mean, there's still some human input, but I think that the touch points, as you mentioned, I mean, going from literally manually inputting every field yourself to 99, 99% you said done for you. I mean, that's a profound shift towards just we're just doing it for you.
Well, there are parts of a workflow where it's absolutely going to get streamlined. There are also parts of the workflows that will probably not get streamlined that quickly. So it's a little bit of both realities. Having a tool where everything is done for you, I think is a huge aspiration and it could be achieved years and years out. I think the more realistic scenario in the present day in the next like 12, 24 months is more and more collaboration between you and the software that you're using. And they're starting to build a more of a feedback loop. So in the historical software, the feedback loop was you still need to understand what you see on the screen. I think in the future, the way you understand things could be very different and could be adjusted based on how you understand the world. You might not need to read a report anymore. That report, if you prefer, could be audio and video. If you prefer, the language of that report can be adjusted based on like how you read the world. Some people are very, let's say, visual and you see nothing but charts. Same topic. Some people are like, I don't want the charts. I want everything written out and summarized. Some people might understand the exact same report. It's like, I don't want to read anything. Just put everything into a audio format and I want to listen to it on my drive home. So the way we consume information will be a lot more specific and tailored. That in the past has not been possible, right? Like a tool is designed to give you a chart. You only get a chart. You don't get everything else. I think now the information is just much more easily to be translated to mediums that are much more specific to the individual. That in the past was not possible.
You've taken us on a journey from time to projects, billing, payments. Now, of course, the introduction of AI into everything. From your desk, looking kind of immediately in terms of the product as well as what customers are telling you. What are you most excited about in this next chapter? Like what are you itching to get out? Like what can we expect here in the next year or two?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the capabilities that are at our fingertips now because of the AI infrastructure means we can build software that's much more intuitive to the human behavior. So I think our products can get way better. We'll also be able to build a lot more product faster. So I'm really excited to not only solving a time project invoicing billing problem, we might start to really solve a CRM, project proposal, project allocation, go finding new work. We might be able to solve more collaboration with consultants, engineers. We might be able to get into construction faster. Um, there's a lot of things that I'm really, really excited about because AI is essentially accelerating the process that I can deploy. Um, it would have been a lot slower with the mission was always the same. It's never changed. But without AI, it would have taken me longer to get to my goalposts. I think now everything's just faster.
From where you began, you had this vision of the operating system to where you are today. How far are we from the promised land?
Oh, I still think we're like 20 years away. Yeah. The version that I have in my head, we're like very far away. Yeah. Because I think, one, I think all the stakeholders should be using Monograph. So that includes all of architecture, engineering, procurement, contracting, and general contracting. That's going to take a long time for us to be a company of that size to do it. So that's the first hurdle, which is purely overcoming this mammoth of a problem and the size that we have to be. The second problem we have to overcome is at a certain scale, most architectural work is global. So then we have multi-currency, multi-language, multi-department, multi-teams simultaneously working on a project across different geographies. We got to solve that problem. So being a global company is not who we are today. We're very much a US company. But for me to reach that milestone, I would love to be a global company. Then the third criteria that might get in my way is I have a feeling that Elon and a few of these other companies might figure out how to like get off this planet faster than I can solve my problem, which then introduces a new problem. How do we facilitate new builders and new engineers that are now designing and building in a new environment? I don't know. What I do know is the people who are going to be building in those environments need to be supported. I should be there to support them. There's a lot of things that could get in my way and make that timeline substantially larger. I best guess 20 years.
I want to end on a spicy take. I put out a post saying something like, I've talked to a lot of architecture principal firms, from big firms, and I believe that in the next 10 years, the next generational wave of firms are not going to be billing on an hourly basis. Why am I either very wrong or very right? And I do acknowledge one very important point I think you made, which is that tracking time in and of itself is key for operational efficiency and performance and improvement. But I also believe now billing by value, not by billable hour, is going to be the thing. But how do you see this? Why would I be wrong or right here?
Like, I actually think that that already exists today. I think there's a lot of firms today that don't invoice by hour. They have a fixed fee structure. That's very common in the industry that we have a fixed fee structure. So if you base your thesis just purely on the industry billing on fixed fee, it's already billing on value. Time has always just been like a measure of an efficiency. Are you spending the right amount of time in the right amount of areas? Here's the biggest general mistake is you want to invoice by value. So you say, I want $1 million to do this project. Great. Project gets signed. It's $1 million project. The problem is most projects are 2 years long, 3 years long. You have hyperinflation along the way. Your $1 million isn't really worth $1 million by the time you actually do the math. But contract signed, it's $1 million. How you manage your operations and your time to not exceed the cost of $1 million is actually the biggest problem. It isn't an invoicing problem, right? Like it isn't about invoicing based on time. Tracking time is really important because it sets the pace. And your pace needs to essentially be readjusted as the market conditions change. Your 1 hour today is worth less than 1 hour 9 months ago and is worth substantially less than 1 hour 2 years ago, purely based on the law of inflation. That has to be accounted for, and you need to still track it. I don't believe that there's a reality where you do not track time. So I think you're already right. I think the industry has been doing that for a long time. They just haven't been tracking time. It isn't an excuse. I think a lot of times I hear a lot of architects, hey, we invoice fixed fee, we bill an invoice based on value. I don't need to track time. I think that's an inappropriate way of looking at the problem, because if you don't track your time, how do you know that the value you're getting is even appropriate? How do you know? Like at the end of the year, if you're an architect and you're very proud that you're billing based on value and you're not walking away with profit, your value measure is wrong. And now you don't know how to fix it because you don't know where your time is went.
Right. For those that want to follow your journey, follow Monograph, or just learn about the product, how did they find you?
You can just email me. Email is really easy. It's just Robert Monograph. I'm fairly active on LinkedIn. And if they're talking to you, they can just call you. You have my number. Give it out.
For those listening in, you heard it here. So if you want Robert's number, gave us permission to give it out. Robert, this has been fun, man. I always feel at the end of these conversations that we could do a part two. You took us on a whole journey about product, about the market, about firms, about the economics of projects. Really, really excited for you. You're a founder that I uh, look up to in many ways, both at a product level, just as you mentioned, like just learning how to sell as well. So thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Rooting for you.